Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall. I hope you're doing all okay out there. I hope you've now got the energy. Seems the first NFL London game has happened. The Vikings against the Saints. What a game that was. We're going to be talking a lot about that with George because he was the only one out of the three of us that was there. Unfortunately, we have been incredibly busy, boys, all three of us. I had Andrew's wedding this weekend. Andrew is on the podcast usually and presents the Franchise Tag Fantasy Show. You know he's been getting married for a long time. We've joked about it because we couldn't go to the first game. But first, I would like to congratulate Andrew and Sophie on their wedding day. It was really perfect. And obviously, he's going to take some nice time off on his honeymoon, off to Puglia. I'm sure he'll have a great time. Then he'll be back very soon to do this show and the fantasy show as well. Johnny was in the Lake District at another wedding, and he was the best man there. I was the best man of mine, so he's equally had a massive weekend. And then George, of course, as you probably see from his social media, was amongst all the celebs at the NFL London game. I mean, you got a list as long as your arm of who you've met now. I mean, have you got Justin Jefferson on speed dial yet? Or
I would love to say yes to that, but yeah, definitely not. Maybe
George,
one day.
Equally has been busy as well. So we have tried to catch up as much as we can, but time just flows by. But don't worry, because there's loads of NFL to come and a game in London this weekend coming, at Tottenham, the Green Bay Packers and the New York Giants, which we are incredibly excited for as well. Myself will be there at that game as well. George, I believe you'll be there at that game as well.
Correct, I'll be there.
Smashing. Well, we'll hopefully see you there. Johnny, will you be there?
Trying to source I think I may have a ticket. So hopefully see you guys there as well.
This is where you pull in all the favours.
You literally.
Well, we're going to be at that game as well. So hopefully all of us will be down there. And hope if you want to come chat to us, we'll be more than available for you to come and say hello and have a beer with us and have a lot of fun. But really, we should start, George, with the NFL UK game. The first game of the international series, obviously one being in Mexico, one being in Germany as well. But this game, 2 o'clock, 2:30 kickoff back at Tottenham. The build-up was really great. I saw that you went down to South Bank as well, did you? And did all the entertainment stuff there. It looked like there was a bit more on this year for the NFL UK fan than there has been in the last few years. What was that like down there?
Yeah, so I think previously, obviously they didn't do anything because of COVID. But then I think before that, it used to be in Regent Street. Now, I've not actually attended the Regent Street one before, so I didn't know what to expect. But it was quite good along the South Bank. There was, I think, 4 different hubs, if you like. There was a field goal challenge if you wanted to try your hand at field goals. There was a QB pocket passing challenge. There was a mini field where they had running back drills and running through bags and catching the ball. So emulate a diving sort of touchdown catch. And there was a wide receiver drill. So you had the jug machine, which is pretty cool, firing the ball down a particular path, and you had to sort of run on the outside, catch the ball, land on a big crash mat. So it's pretty cool. On the other part of the South Bank, they had the six teams that are taking part in the London games. They had supersized helmets of each team, as well as an NFL London series helmet in the middle. And there were loads of fans and families taking photos with those. And to be fair, it was a great day because the weather was great, and that always makes it better. And then also to cap it off in the Oxo Tower on South Bank, the bottom floor, there was a Super Bowl exhibition where you could see the Super Bowl trophy and every single Super Bowl ring from the first all the way up until the current Super Bowl ring, which is the Rams. And it's really strange because you start at the beginning, and there's a lot of them. You work your way around and you look at each ring, and then you start to see they go from being really small to being gigantic. And you can tell when the Patriots start to take over because their rings just stand out like anything. And obviously you got back to back to back. And then you make your way all the way up to the end where you've got the Rams ring, which I think opens and closes, if I remember. The top of the ring opens and closes. And then at the end, you've got the Lombardi Super Bowl trophy on display, which you're not allowed to touch, obviously. And it's heavily protected. You can just take photos. But that was good. It was good because it got people involved. DJ was doing a lot. There was loads of appearances from people like O.C. Manura, Jason Bell, Maurice Jones-Drew, even Good Morning Football. For those of you that watch Good Morning Football, we had Rachel Burnetta on there from NFL Network, who I was thrilled and lucky enough to have an interview with. She's she's so cool, funny, and really, really amazing. Chris Carter, Vikings Hall of Famer, gold jacket, legendary wide receiver, was there. I mean, it was a great day. People, I feel, bear in mind, it was free. Nobody had to pay anything. People got their money's worth in terms of their time of coming down. So it was great. It was great.
I'm glad that there was a lot more to do because it has been a bit lackluster at times in previous years. But obviously, I know you're like a running back, George. But could you become a kicker? Do you reckon? Did you have the leg for it? Was it competitive?
I'll tell you what. So I turned up, and I was basically there to capture some content. But the itch to go and do the jugs machine drill, the wide receiver drill. When I played for 11 years, so I should have no excuse. I didn't do it because I wasn't dressed for it. But I'd be that guy to go and try the drill, pull a hamstring or something, and then miss the ball. So I just decided not to get involved. I know it's bound to happen, so I just stayed away.
Well, you have to save embarrassment, especially when
Exactly.
with the stars that you're around these days. Mate, you don't want anything out there, but might bring your reputation.
Yeah.
But I mean, when we talk about the game, though, George, I've seen the highlights now. Obviously, a very dramatic ending. I thought personally, I did say it myself during the wedding, is that I wasn't that bothered that we were really missing it because so many injuries were happening, and Dalvin Cook did come back in the end, which was good. But Winston being out, Michael Thomas being out, Kamara, I don't believe suited up in the end, did he? And Andy Dalton and Kirk Cousins. It felt like 7 years ago, Washington versus Cincinnati, and that wasn't that fun then. So I didn't know whether this would be that fun now. But it seemed like it seemed a very competitive game. The crowd seemed really into it. Was it? I take it on the day. It was just as good as ever. Was it? Did we keep the energy going like we did from last year and carried it on?
So I'll say this. I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people prior to the game, their opinion was, well, it's not going to be great because there's no Alvin Kamara, so you don't get to see his skill set on show. There's no Jameis Winston, and obviously there's always something happening with Winston. And it's strange because I went to the Saints pressers on Monday and Wednesday before the game, and Winston didn't practice on Monday, Tuesday. On Wednesday, there was talk of him potentially practicing the next day and playing, and we spoke to him personally, and he said, yeah, I'll be practicing, and he wasn't practicing, and then news came that he was doubtful until he finally was ruled out. The Kamara news was a shock, and I had no idea because he was on the train. He was on the field when we went to go and watch the presser on Wednesday at the London Irish Stadium in Hazelwood, and he was practicing. So it's very strange to all of a sudden for him to be out with it. They did elevate someone from the practice squad alongside Mark Ingram, so it did kind of tell a bit of a story. But the fact that he wasn't, Murray, I believe. Latavius Murray, that's it. Who's now actually been signed to the? He's been traded to. He's been traded to the Broncos, I believe, because obviously Javonte Williams is now out with an ACL and I think MCL, so he's done. It was very surprising, but obviously you had no Michael Thomas either, who's got dealing with a toe injury, and everybody wants to see Michael Thomas. So the feeling was, it's not going to be that much of a great game. There was doubt about Dalvin Cook because of his shoulder. Apparently, it's an issue that happens quite often where he dislocates his shoulder. But obviously you have the likes of Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, people that everybody wants to see them, right? But the game itself was unbelievable. It's one of the best finishes I've seen in the London game in as far as I can remember, and I've been to a few of them. It started out quite slow. The Vikings were marching the ball down the field pretty easily with loads of crossing routes. Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson underneath. And it looked like they would be the ones to basically take the game early on. But the Saints started to creep back in. Their defense did really well. Mark Ingram ran the ball really well. And then they managed to get a particular drive. And I have to say, the crowd, there was a lot of Vikings fans, a hell of a lot of Saints fans. And the Saints fans really traveled. When I say they traveled, I mean, I saw marching bands outside. You could just tell these guys flew in for this game and they brought the energy massively to the point where when the Vikings ran out of the tunnel, the boos, I didn't realize there were that many Saints fans. The boos were, deafening, absolutely deafening. But there were a fair number of Vikings fans. As you expect for a London game, you're seeing so many different jerseys everywhere. Everybody reps their own team, and that's completely fine. But the game picked up really, really well. I mean, the Saints had a drive when Taysom Hill came into the game, and he did what he does. I think you would have seen that on the highlights, and he made things happen. Chris Olave had some good catches as well. Traquan Smith, Callaway. They basically used what they had. The thing is, Dalton is not a bad quarterback. He's not awful. He's one of the better backup options. Hell, I'd take him over Matt Ryan at this point easily. But I mean, you would have seen if I fast forward towards the end of the game, the crowd is thinking, okay, this is potentially overtime until Justin Jefferson scores and brings out the gritty that everybody wants to see towards the end of the game. And then the Saints go literally marching down the field until it gets to. Now, I will mention, Will Lutz had previously kicked a 60-yard field goal in this game. I think that was his season long as well. I'm not sure if it's his career long. It might be. And he just about got it. with I think how many seconds left in the game. It was 25-28 and to the Vikings, and Will Lutz went for a 61-yard field goal. And I tell you what, I was so confused. And people that I've spoken to today, I was at the International Combine today, and people that were at the game, we had this discussion. Will Lutz goes for the kick, 61 yards. Bearing in mind, he just hit 60. The ball hits the upright, the left-hand side upright. And at this point, I'm screaming. The crowd has gone nuts. If you look at some of the game highlights, head coach, I forget his name. Head coach, what's the Saints head coach name again? It's not Kevin O'Connell. That's the other one.
Allen, isn't it?
Dennis Allen.
Dennis Allen. There we go. Dennis Allen. He's jumping for joy. The whole sideline is going nuts. Only for the ball to then bounce off the upright onto the bar on the wrong side of the bar and fall in front of the goalposts. And the Saints don't make the field goal, and the Vikings win. Honestly, it was a ridiculous game. It was great. It really, really was good. One of the better finishes I've seen in a long time. I think the game built up really well. And it's only got us hyped for the next game, which obviously features Aaron Rodgers, and you can't complain about that, can you?
What I said on the podcast last week when I came back from, because my first pod back from America after seeing the Bills-Dolphins game, and when I was at that game, it was the first game I've ever been where there is this, even though he was the away quarterback with Josh Allen, the stadium is just like, this guy's elite. Like the Miami fans are worried when he's on the field, no matter how far they're in the front. The Bills fans are chanting MVP every time he's got the ball in his hand. When I was watching him, he was like creating something. I know there was highlights of him missing a few throws, but he was just electric. He's the best player I've ever seen play. He looks like a game changer. With this game, you said obviously there was big stars missing, but the notable star played was Justin Jefferson, and who is, by all accounts, to some people, the number one wide receiver in the league at the minute. Was there that same feeling with Justin Jefferson as well? Was it, well, everyone might be covered, but Kurt just throw it and he's going to be there somewhere? Was there that feeling in the stadium?
There wasn't initially. So at the start of the game, I don't know, it might have even been the entire first half. Marcus Lattimore did have him on lockdown quite a lot. They weren't using him early on. They were going to Adam Thielen a lot. Naturally, the attention is drawn towards Justin Jefferson. So whether it's double coverage or one over the top as a spy or something, the guys underneath become open. KJ Osborne had a great touchdown, which was called back. Again, the attention was focused on JJ, so KJ was naturally open. And I think that's what happened in one of their games last week as well, to seal the deal against the Lions. Adam Thielen, Irv Smith, the big tight end, he had a good game as well. Dalvin Cook. But the feeling wasn't what people were expecting from Justin Jefferson. I mean, there was no long balls. There was no, I think the longest part of the game was probably to Chris Olave. And he had a big catch. I think he might have been 30 or 40 yards or something. It was a great catch. But the Justin Jefferson hype was up there. The first half, it didn't show anything really. I mean, he had a few catches here and there. Then they started to work him into the game. There's a particular play. I think it was a 10 and out. So for those who don't know, it's like a 10 yards up the field. And you make a sharp cut out towards the sideline with the aim of either dragging your toes or catching the ball in bounds before stepping out of bounds. And twice he did that to Marshall Lattimore, and twice he secured those balls. And I think it gave him a bit of confidence and a bit of, okay, I can own you sort of thing. Similar to how Mike Evans always has beef with Marshall Lattimore. They always go back and forth. And then he kind of fell into his groove. He made some great catches, some great yards after the catch, and he ended up with a relatively easy touchdown, which is strange because I don't think the crowd realized he had scored. I think it was a motion and they'd handed it off to him or something. Because to be honest, I didn't even realize, and the crowd didn't realize. All of a sudden, he's in the end zone, pretty much walking into the end zone. So it's almost as if a flag had been thrown, which it hadn't. But he scored a touchdown. He pulls out the gritty, which is what everybody wanted to see. I think he ended up with a good stat line, especially after the touchdown. So in the end, he did come to play. He stayed after the end of the game to applaud the crowd. Took some photos. He did I'll call it a London leap rather than a Lambo leap. He did a London leap into one of the end zone areas and took some photos with some fans. And it was really good. It was a great vibe. And I think the fans that traveled in particular made it so amazing because you know how passionate they are about their teams. And the energy was there all game. It was a great atmosphere. Great first game out of the three.
Do you have any questions, Johnny, for George about the game? I don't know if you want to ask him anything.
Yeah. Well, no, I'd just like to echo what he said. George, about the atmosphere and obviously the pre-game hype around it, which I was lucky to go down and have a look. Didn't spend too much time there, but there was a sense that this was, even on social media, I think, there was a lot more hype around this London series. It was great to see, all the fans that travelled down. I unfortunately wasn't able to go to the game on Sunday. I had the privilege of watching my girlfriend in the London Marathon, but even there,
that's pretty cool.
It was. I mean, it was cool. I mean, big shout out actually to Becca for completing that.
Nice.
But yeah, the amount of fans that had turned up and were watching the game. That obviously they're watching the marathon, so hadn't even gone to the game. They'd just come down for the weekend to soak up the atmosphere. Was great to see. And I had the privilege of going to both the games last year, and the quality wasn't, I suppose, there compared to what I've seen from Sunday's game, which made the occasion all the more better, as we got to see one of, if not the best London game that there's ever been. It sets down a real precedent for next week, for Sunday. Sorry. So really looking forward to seeing the Packers Giants, and I can imagine there's similar, if not more, attention on that, given Rodgers obviously has been coming to the UK has been obviously a big sort of talking point since the games were announced. So I think it's the London games are fantastic for NFL in this country. Obviously grows the game. Every single year there's more people who become aware of the sport, even whether that be going to the games or watching it on TV. So it's a brilliant thing, and long may it continue. It's great to see the NFL going to Germany this year, and I'm just really excited for the expansion of the NFL internationally.
I feel bad because we've mentioned Aaron Rodgers like 3 times and not given any of Daniel Jones, bless him. He's traveling here as well, like he's playing as well. But Johnny, you do make a point. I think what a great game this has been. Hopefully, we can now roll into the Packers Giants game, which last year when it was announced, and we're like, if it was Rodgers and Adams, that'd be amazing. But equally, it's Aaron Rodgers coming to the UK for the first time ever, and the Green Packers first time ever as well. We've got a Giants team who have not looked bad by any stretch of imagination. I know Daniel Jones hasn't looked great, but their defense has looked pretty good. Their weapons like Saquon Barkley looks like he's getting back into his groove. It's unfortunate about Sterling Shepard, who looked like he was finding his feet again. He's now out the season again. I think this he might be looking at this being it forever for him too, because it's far too consistent. But with that, there can be the rising other wide receivers that the Giants can maybe turn to. Kenny Golladay, we've not yet seen really him come into his own with this team. I mean, what do you think we can expect from this game at Tottenham between the Packers and the Giants?
I think what you've just said there about the 2 biggest concerns, the quarterback. Obviously, we don't know if Daniel Jones or Tyrod Taylor are going to be fit enough to play. So, and the wide receivers, we've seen throughout this season, they're not up to scratch, which is really unfortunate. Saquon Barkley's having a standout year, which is brilliant to see. Obviously, because I've got him in fantasy this year. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the Giants get on, because this is they've had a few tests, but this is a contender that they're coming up against. Brian Dable's made a superb start to his coaching career. He's got the guts, obviously, with no sort of quarterback for a chunk of the game on Sunday. He was able to play, I suppose something where other sort of first year coaches may have crumbled in that sort of situation. So, I think it's going to be obviously a tough challenge against the Packers. But I'm hoping that someone like Kenny Golladay, who you mentioned, can finally sort of step out, and Kadarius Toney, the likes of these young Giants wide receivers, because that is definitely something, a question mark area for them. They're 3-1, and this could be the peak of their season. But we want the momentum to continue in London. Obviously, the Giants have such a big fan base in the UK, so I'm hoping they'll be able to spur them on. I'm just looking forward to a really good contest, and hopefully it's not too one-sided. Obviously, the Packers, against the Patriots struggled at times, but I still think they are probably the best team in the NFC, with others around them struggling. Let's just wait till Sunday and see what the Giants can do.
Of course, George, for me and you, not our teams playing, but we know so many people, Packers and Giants. I mean, Andrew,
Massively.
Adam, Abby, Ash,
Literally.
Ray,
Dre,
it's
Cameron.
nice
There's
to,
so
like,
many. Yeah,
it means almost more in a way when like
it
friends
does.
around us support them, teams. What are you expecting from this game?
So, firstly, what's the latest on Daniel Jones? Was he concussed or something? I don't remember what's happened to him.
I'm going to be totally honest. I didn't even know he got out of the game. I've not got as far as the Giants highlights yet. I completely forgot who they played. I know I see they beat the Bears 20-12. I'm unsure as to what's going on with him, but if you do some filling in talking, George, I probably
he went out with an ankle injury on Sunday, and I think it's Tara Taylor who's got it's going through concussion protocol. So I think the third choice is Davis Webb, who on their practice squad.
Oh wow!
I don't know the latest on either.
A bit
Jones
like the Patriots situation. They were down to their third backup as well after the Matt Jones and Brian Hoyer. So put it this way. Before Sterling Shepard went down, and obviously before Daniel Jones, I actually had the Packers. I had the Giants winning this game because early on the Green Bay didn't look great. Obviously, Rodgers wasn't connecting with his guys. I know it's changed a little bit now, and they've got that monster in their 1-2 combo of AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, because that's pretty much what they're riding on right now, and sprinkle of Allen Hazard and Watson maybe, and Robert Tonyan, the tight end. But yeah, it's a shame because, I mean, number one, if Daniel Jones doesn't play and Taylor doesn't play, then it's going to be a very strange game. And that Packers defense is legit. I mean, it's up there. I mean, the Eagles have a great defense, but if the Packers end up facing this third QB from the practice squad, I mean, don't get me wrong, any given Sunday, right? Cooper Rush is undefeated, so anything can kind of happen. But yeah, I mean, it would be strange if it ends up being no Daniel Jones, no Sterling Shepard. Kenny Golladay has just taken his money and doesn't do anything for the team. It really baffles me why the Giants don't get Kadarius Toney involved. It really, really baffles me. I don't know if there's something personal going on, like a Bill Belichick situation where if you cross that line and you're out of the building or something. I don't really know what's going on, but he was returning from injury, and he was looking to play. But is it Robinson? There's a wide receiver they have. I don't know his first name. Something Robinson. This is the Giants.
Yeah, the rookie from this year.
He's been getting a lot of targets. I can't remember who they've got a tie end.
Wandale Robinson.
That's it. That's the one. That's the one. Yeah.
I don't know where I put these names out from. They're just like vision. I have no idea how I got that one.
I think there's a James something as well. I don't know who he is. James. I'm not too sure. I don't follow
I know him. Richie James.
Richie James. That's the one. And that's it. Kadarius Toney is just like nowhere to be found, and I don't understand that. He's a playmaker. He changes games. Obviously, you've got Barkley, who is great, but if you don't have Daniel Jones, you have no Sterling Shepard, Golladay doesn't play, you kind of, you're down to like a limited number of guys. Defenses are going to expect the run, which they'll just stack the box and dare your third string quarterback to throw the ball to subpar receivers. And it technically looks like it can only go one way. The only thing I will say is at the end of the day, it's any given Sunday. The Colts beat Kansas City and no one thought we would. And then we flamed out against the Titans because we're just trash right now. I'm not going to get into the Colts because I can't deal with them. It's just too stressful. But I mean, you can never say never. You can't necessarily rule out the Giants just because they've got a third string QB, although technically they should lose this game if that is what's going to happen. But I think it might make for a bit of a spectacle. Just Barkley's going to want to try and do everything. They're going to try and get him involved in different ways: screens, wheel routes, power runs, everything they can try and do counters. But it is a bit upsetting the fact that this is going to be our second game and we don't have the starting quarterback for another team already, probably down to our third string quarterback. So yeah, I don't know. We can't really, I guess we can suspect a little bit and say that the Packers are probably going to be the stronger side here, even without Devontae Adams and their struggle that they've had with their drops and Aaron Rodgers, blasting. I think there was a clip of him in the recent game where they beat who did they beat? I'm still catching up. I don't recall who they beat. It was a close game. And Aaron Rodgers was going hell for leather at his center because he hadn't snapped the ball. And you can just tell
I've seen I've seen it. Yeah.
there is so much frustration there. And he's a guy who, if he throws you the ball, he wants you to catch it. He just gives you that look of death, that stare, and you kind of know that, you're not going to get the ball again. But this is the Packers team now. This is their team. Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon can't do it all, because likelihood is one of them will get hurt pretty soon, because that's the way it goes in the NFL. But nevertheless, it's great to have the Packers in London. It's great to have the Giants in London. The Packers have never been before. The Giants have. I'm sure the Packers fans will travel really well. The Cheeseheads, they're going to be everywhere. And like you said, we know so many fans of both teams. And I think, personally, that's what makes it a really great game, because I'll have someone like Dre next to me, also someone like Ash next to me, and they're, supports the opposite team. So I think it will be fun.
Well, I've got Adam sat next to me, who's obviously a Packers fan, and no Andrew, because he'll be in Italy. So I've got to be the surrogate New York fan. And then we've got Byron with us, who's a Biff Bills fan, but he probably wants to get under Adam's skin, so he'll support the Giants with me. Then we've got Gareth, who's an Eagles fan, so he's definitely going to support the Packers. It's a lot of people. According to the reports, Tyro's probably not going to play because he's in concussion protocol. Jones did actually come back on the field, even though he has a left ankle injury, when Taylor went down. But he literally just fed Saquon or went for. So he didn't do anything strenuous at all from the looks of it. They're saying they won't sign a quarterback, but they're looking to promote Davis Webb from the practice squad, which Webb, I think, has taken snaps in the NFL before.
Yeah, I recognize the name.
I feel like it might have been for the Texans, but I could be wrong.
I think it is.
Yeah, so I think Taylor's an absolute no-go, but Jones, it's considered day-to-day. It says, which
I'd like to see Jones.
Which means about as much as nothing, doesn't it? It really it doesn't really mean anything. So hopefully he gets through and gets there, and it'd be good to see him play. Obviously, did you risk it? I mean, it's their call at the end of the day and see how comfortable he is on the day. But we'll move on from the NFL London games, and we'll chat to Johnny. He's got some bits he wants to talk about. He's one of the only ones out of us three who's actually watched a bit of football this weekend, whereas we you've got some bold claims, Johnny. You were talking to us about it before the pod started. So I know that you've watched the highlights for the San Francisco Rams game that happened last night. And is this the slippery slope from the Super Bowl winning team crashing down?
Yes, I'd like to say that I am quite fearful for the Rams. Albeit they've had a lot of injuries recently. And, that is the NFL. That's the game that we play. There's always that risk. But I think Monday night against the 49ers just highlighted again how much weaker they look compared to last season. Their depleted offensive line, obviously, is a result of injuries, but it's a real worry. Stafford was sacked 7 times again, like he was against the Bills in the first game of the season, with the likes of Nick Bosa, Samson Ebukam just running riot, really. Against, I think it was an undrafted right guard and a centre who'd never practiced with Stafford before, let alone played with him. So I think that's a real concern, particularly in, the part of the season where teams are, just trying to get through and manage before really pushing on into November, when, injuries and people who've got injured at the start of the season can return. But I think another big difference in the game was how reliant the Giants are on Cooper Kupp. And obviously, they have been for the last 18 months or so. But for me, the 49ers were so much better after the pass. Deebo Samuel was able to, complete yards on, almost on his own. He's a complete magician. There was great plays from Kyle Juszczyk. The screen worked really well for Brandon Ayuk, I remember, on a couple of times. The running game was so much better. That's been a real struggle for the Rams. And, the 49ers with, their backup running back in Wilson. Yeah, just basically, just cause chaos. Against
Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson, against the Rams, both pass rush and the running defense was pretty poor. I don't think they recorded a single sack on Garoppolo. Or got close to disturbing the 49ers offensive line, which is also missing the likes of Trent Williams. Yeah, I think injuries can ruin any season, just like they did for the 49ers a couple of years ago. And I'm really fearful that, they haven't replaced someone, like Andrew Whitworth in any great sort of manner. Obviously the players who they brought in are injured, so they're playing on a really depleted offensive line. And yeah, I think they've got a couple of games. They've got to play the 49ers again in a few weeks, who have so much dominance over the Rams in the regular season for the last couple of years. I think they've got games against the Cardinals, the Buccaneers coming up. So yeah, obviously they're 2-2. They beat the Falcons. I remember, and I think who was their other team that they beat last week? I think it wasn't the Cardinals again.
They beat the Rams 31-27. So sorry, they beat the Falcons 31-27. So only just
the
Cardinals 20-12, which
huge
margin.
It's just a little concern for me. I think they aren't the in the top three. I don't think in the NFC. I think the 49ers and the Packers, who I mentioned, are probably the number one teams there. The Buccaneers, obviously got a defeat against the Chiefs, but are probably in a better position than the Rams, given their elite defense. So yeah, I think it's just a bit of a worry for Rams fans and their Super Bowl defense in the
Looks
season.
like I need to trade my quarterback Stafford in fantasy, because I can't be having that.
The 9 points all came from 3 field goals. I mean, Matt Stafford threw for 254 yards, and Cooper Kupp were counted for 122 of them. So 132 yards went to other players. Actually, Tyler Higbee was 73 yards.
Yeah.
So it under 100 yards goes to everybody else. And George, when you look at it, Darrell Henderson only 27 yards on 7 carries. Cam Akers only 13 yards on 8 carries.
Wow.
Are they just struggling to? Is it because the 49ers and the Rams? You could argue there is a sense of one-dimensionality to them. Cooper Kupp's the entire offense. It feels like for the Rams, and Deebo Samuel feels like the entire offense for the 49ers. But yet, the distribution, I think, for the 49ers is a little bit larger. They've got Kittle as well. Obviously, Tyler Higbee is a very good tight end. But do you think there does come a point where it's what I've always loved about Cooper Kupp is it's predictable. He's coming for you. They're going to him. But he beats you anyway. And that's what I really enjoyed about Cooper Kupp's plays. It just feels like you can't stop him at times, even though it's going to him. But do you think the Rams, to get this record a bit better, is they're going to need to get some more dynamic players?
A key thing for me here is, Johnny mentioned the O-line, which is massive. It's a similar thing with the Colts right now. O-line just isn't up to scratch, and so you can't get much done. But the Rams of old, or the Rams of the Super Bowl era, or the reign, the guys who hold up that trophy, they had the likes of Van Jefferson, who hasn't played this season, and they had OBJ, who did, even if he doesn't get the ball, he at least provides cover or takes the top off defenders, which means you can go to other ones like Cooper Kupp or vice versa. And they haven't had that this season. You pair that with...
I know he was injured as well last year, but Robert Woods in the years before played that role as well, didn't he?
Exactly. And if you pair that with the poor O-line play, I haven't fully seen this game, so I don't know what Matthew Stafford's elbow looks like now, because in the first game of the season, he looked very limited. Then, yeah, it is a bit of a concern. You trade for someone like Bobby Wagner, and I'm hearing that his best tackle was, or the best defensive tackle they made was on the guy who ran onto the pitch with the smoke flares or whatever it was. So, yeah, I mean, they talk about the Super Bowl hangover, about being able to, repeat things and not coming out as strong because, there is the hangover, but it's strange. It is strange. But in a way, it's kind of great because the NFL, every single Sunday is different. I mean, the Jags, for God's sake, the Jags look unreal. And I'm saying that as a divisional rival. So at this point, I reckon the Jags win our division, and the Colts probably finish bottom at this point, because things aren't just the same, they just really aren't. So for the Rams, I mean, you mentioned that their yards running the ball. That's terrible. They had issues last season. Cam Akers, obviously rushed back from that. I think it was an Achilles injury in record time. I think no one had ever heard of anyone to recover in the same season and then play and then actually cough up the ball in the Super Bowl a couple of times or something along those lines. Then to start the season off, you mentioned he had 7 or 8 carries for 13 yards.
The total rushing yards on the day was 57.
That is abysmal. That's Saquon Barkley will get that in one run. It's just, it's not good enough, and it doesn't.
I would say equally the 49ers did get 88 rushing yards. So again, low, but it shows
they can do other things.
Not about the yards you get, it's what you do when
Yeah.
you got the ball in your hands.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah, they can do other things. And I just feel like the Rams need a run game. They need a run game to do what they do. They love the play action. You've got someone like Cooper Kupp who, you know, feeds off that kind of thing. Higbee, like you mentioned. And it just, I think they've got the Skowronek as well. Is that his name? The wide receiver Skowronek?
Yeah.
Who, to be honest, I feel like he is the 1B to Cooper Kupp's 1A, because a few times I've actually got muddled up and thought it was Cooper Kupp when it wasn't. But you need the run game to work if you want to have successful plays, in particular the play action route, because we know they love to do that. And I don't know what happens from here. The 49ers game, you know, Kyle Shanahan seems to always have a one-up over the Rams for whatever reason. And that doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon. Similar to how the Colts can never beat the Jags away from home, or just the Jags entirely. I had to get that one in there. You can tell how furious I am.
I see the messages on WhatsApp, mate. I know exactly how upset you are.
I can't. I refuse to deal with it. I will say this just quickly. Jim Irsay wants to get rid of both Frank Reich and Chris Ballard, and I'm all in for it. Just get him out the door. I can't stand it anymore. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I think I agree with you, Johnny. The Rams are in a bit of trouble. I mean, when you look at your fantasy team and your starting quarterback in Stafford is putting up numbers like that and being sacked that many times, I mean, he's not Joe Burrow. So what is happening? You know, it's crazy.
I mean, when you look at it, I don't know whether it's just a blip in the system, maybe, because, you know, they allowed 7 sacks, they had a lost fumble and an interception, and the 49ers had none of that in that game. And I don't know. For me, it's like with any of these players that are the elite players, when they're on the field, there's always that chance for them to win. And you can't discount Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner. Okay, he's not in his best days anymore, but still is a fantastic linebacker. Leonard Floyd. I think there's still a competitive team, but you've just got to find new ways to win sometimes. I agree with, George, that the running game it's not picked up after Todd Gurley's fantastic season when they got to the Super Bowl. After that, it's just gone downhill everywhere. I know Henderson's had his games, and Cam Akers has had his games, and even Sony Michel, when he was there last year, had his games. There just doesn't seem to be that consistency. And a lot of teams are having it. I think Miami are like that as well. There's a few teams. I think Buff Bills can be like that with Singletary every now and then. He seems to have 1 or 2 good games and then goes quiet again. You've got to have dynamic play across the field, and they don't struggle with that on defense. You know, dynamic linebacker, dynamic defensive tackle, dynamic corners, safeties. They have real talent everywhere, and yet on offense, it feels like Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford, and then a whole lot of everyone else. Allen Robinson's an interesting one. The other week he was being heralded. Now he goes for. It was remarkably low, two catches, 7 yards. I mean, it just tells a story, really. And then also yard per play, 6.7 for this 49ers, 3.5 for the Rams.
Wow.
Is this division a bit more harder than we maybe gave it credit for at the start of the season, Johnny? Because it felt like the Rams were going to run away with this division. 49ers now losing Trey Lance, but Jimmy Garoppolo's now stepped in. Obviously, that it was no secret that they were going to trade him all off season. He ended up staying. The Cardinals, not looking great, but not looking bad at the same time, just sort of doing what the Cardinals do, I suppose. And then the Seahawks, who they played in a fantastic game against the Lions. In fact, I looked at the score at the wedding, and NFL.com must have been broken because it gave me the final score and it gave me the stats. And Geno Smith had like 138 yards. And I was going, this doesn't make sense. How can you get 45 points? Me and Trev, who's Andrew's dad, were going like, it must have been picks and special teams. Then I watched the highlights earlier, and I saw at the bottom in the fourth quarter, like Geno Smith 387 yards, and I was like, oh right, so NFL.com just broke for me for that moment then. Do we need to give this division a bit more credit? The teams in this division a bit more credit?
Yeah, definitely. I think Rams obviously are a brilliant team still. They won the Super Bowl last year, so they're obviously still a fantastic team who may have just, like George said, just had a little bit of a hangover to start the season. 49ers, another great team, one of the contenders again for the Super Bowl this year. And the Seahawks have been a bit of a surprise package. Geno Smith is the highest completion percentage in the league at the moment. Rashad Penny was on fire against the Lions. They're putting up great numbers. On offense, yes, the defense isn't quite there, and there's a lot of pieces missing. I think this may be the peak of their season. Having won Are they 3-1 now? Yeah, it looks great, but yeah, they could, they have some difficult games coming up. But I feel, I personally have been quite critical of the Seahawks over the last year or so, mainly because I'm a Jets fan and just giving them the stick over what they gave up for Jamal Adams and, the debacle over the off season with Russell Wilson. But, look how that's turning out with the Broncos. I think the Seahawks deserve, a lot of credit for the way they've started the season, and Geno Smith as well. And the other team in the division, the Arizona Cardinals, they have one of the most exciting playmakers in the league, and I think they need to use him a lot more. We love to see Kyler Murray just creating plays on his own and running at defenses. I don't think that's happened all that much as it had done like in the last couple of seasons. Cliff Kingsbury's obviously trying new things. They're waiting for DeAndre Hopkins to come back. But I still feel they are a really solid team. I think the defense is actually holding its own, which I was quite worried about. I think before the season, where their secondary was quite depleted. So absolutely, I think this is a really strong division, one of the strongest in the league. And any game against any divisional rival doesn't matter who you're playing against. I think is always going to be a challenge. And if teams have to play these teams 6 times a year, sometimes it could swing one way, sometimes it could swing the other. So yeah, I definitely think we have to give credit to the teams in this division. There's obviously going to be one or two that miss out on the playoffs. So I don't think the Seahawks are going to end up, being in the final lineup for the playoffs. When it all comes down to it. Same with the Cardinals probably. But yeah, the 49ers and the Rams are still very good teams, and hopefully the Rams can recover a little bit. It would be a shame for them to completely fall off a bit of a cliff, but with the injuries that they've had, like we've mentioned, it is a difficult time for them. Just hopefully they can manage the next few weeks, and once players return, they can go on a real charge.
Thank you both for coming on. I really do appreciate it. I know you've both been incredibly busy, and it's any time you give the Franchise Tag podcast, myself and the viewers all love. Johnny, it would be awfully bad form of me not to get you on, the man behind Off Grid NFL, and not to, for you to not tell us what we can find over there at the minute. I'm sure you've got articles coming out your ears with so much what's going on at the minute. Got any sort of top articles that are going on over there that must read, interesting read? I mean, they're all interesting reads.
Yeah, we're doing obviously a lot of very standard sort of content for the season, rounding up our players of the week, looking for the rookies to look out for. One of our writers has recently done a piece on the Lions, telling how they're the most exciting team to watch in football at the moment. And I think obviously they have a lot of problems on defense, but they're very exciting to watch on offense. Jared Goff's having a great start to the year. The likes of TJ Hawkinson, who we saw put up record numbers at the weekend, St. Brown as well, having a great year. That's an article that is going down really well on the site. And we've got plenty more opinions and latest sort of news and expert tips and analysis. So yeah, be sure to check it out.
Yeah, definitely go check out Off Grid NFL, and not to upset your new friends like Mark Ingram or Justin Jefferson or Rachel, but come on, be on it. What was your moment of the weekend, I suppose, in the weekend? I know you've got so much going on this week coming up to the next game as well, but God, you've got to upset a few of them. What was your favourite moment? What bit were you like, oh wow?
What, as in the build, just in the week generally?
In the whole thing, the whole week, the whole game.
Okay. So I think it would be on Monday before the Saints game. I went down to, I forget where it was, for a Saints presser. It was quite a small and intimate presser with Demario Davis, Mark Ingram, head coach Dennis Allen, and some other guys. And I feel like because I've played, when I ask questions to these guys, it really hits home on a personal level because I can relate to that. Obviously not in the NFL, but so I made quite a good connection with Mark Ingram. And then when I came back on Wednesday for training, followed by a presser, we saw them train, and then we had a presser. Mark Ingram didn't take part, but someone sort of tapped me on the shoulder, grabbed me quite aggressively from behind, and I was about to turn around with an attitude and realize it was Mark Ingram who came over to say hi, which is pretty cool. So I can't live that down. Like I'm still like, who's that? That was pretty cool. I think it was because basically my question to him was congratulated him for breaking 10,000 yards, which is a record for him, scrimmage yards that is, and he's obviously the Saints' all-time leader in Russia. So he found that. I think I always try to find questions that aren't going to be asked by the rest of the media, things that they actually care about and things that they'd like to speak on, just because I want the good reaction. And I think that kind of did it for him. So when you saw me, I always have my hair in a quite distinctive way, so it's easy to spot me. So he must have just seen me from afar and sort of waded through the crowd and managed to grab my shoulder, which I thought was some randomer, but it was actually Mark Ingram. So that's definitely the highlight of my week last week.
And I hear he's an Arsenal fan. I saw he's an Arsenal fan.
He is an Arsenal fan. That's correct.
Really happy, even more happy.
Yeah,
I know you're a devout
absolutely.
Arsenal fan as well. And you get just as grumpy and upset when they lose and don't do well. It's like when you're happy these days, man. I mean,
put it this way: I'm glad Arsenal are top of the league and playing well, because if we were playing awfully like we tend to do, and the Colts are playing like the way they do, I'd be a very, very upset guy.
Well, the win of Spurs, I'm sure, win beating Spurs probably helped that as well.
Oh yeah, massively.
Well, thank you, Johnny, both for coming on. You'll definitely see me and George down at the game this Sunday. You may see Johnny at the game this Sunday if he gets his fingers in the pies of he knows and try and get down there. If you do see us, make sure you come up and say hello to us. We're always open to chat NFL, chat football. We love meeting you guys out there, and fellow podcasters and other guys as well. There's going to be loads of them there. They're all doing tremendous work with one goal of growing the NFL UK community for the betterment of everybody and for us as well. So make sure you reach out and chat to us at the game. Hopefully it'll be a fantastic game. Daniel Jones, fingers crossed for yourself that you'll be playing. Until then, have a good rest of your week. Enjoy the build-up, and we'll see you all very soon.